All right, welcome in, and we are down to 4. That's right, 4 teams remain. 2 of them will advance to play for a national championship, and we still got a couple of number ones available there to take it all down. Will it be UConn? Will it be Purdue? Does UConn get past Alabama? Can Purdue be the team that finally ends this unbelievable run by North Carolina State as an 11 seed? We got a few things to discuss here on this Monday, April 1st, as we welcome in Brian Power in the house here, holding on to that North Carolina State futures ticket that he got back in November because he had the kind of foresight to grab that kind of ticket. Not Drew Martin and I. No. But we do have maybe an idea on another basketball game that's going to be played here. So we got a few things here to break down and go over as we get ready for Final Four weekend here. BP, welcome in, my man. It's taken a while, college basketball, but we are here. What were some of your initial thoughts on what you witnessed? What do you think you got right? What were you just off? I can't get North Carolina State right, so I give up. I thought Duke would definitely not go 5 of 20 again like they did in the ACC championship from 3, and they were even worse in that game yesterday.
Well, Joe, I mean, if we could all handicap 3-point variance before the tip times, I think we'd all be living in a very nice, an even nicer place than we already both live in. But yeah, I mean, it was funny that with that Duke NC State game that you just referenced, the consensus, and it's a consensus that I agreed with largely, was there was some value on Duke because they had just closed as an 11-point favorite in the ACC tournament against NC State. Obviously, that was a neutral site game as well, so there were several points. But yeah, I mean, this NC State team, who would have ever thought they were going to be in the Final Four? They are just the 7th 11th seed to ever make it. Now, no 11 seed has ever won in the Final Four. They're 0-6 straight up previous, 1-4 ATS. We don't have a number on the first one who did it, 86 LSU. So history is certainly against the Wolfpack, at least winning on Saturday. But of course, we have a spread to talk about here on the show. And when it comes to point spreads, Joe, the other thing I learned over the weekend, I don't think you can make them high enough with this UConn team, because my number said, I was coming off a 2-0 Sweet 16. I was feeling good. I was like, this Illinois line is inflated. I'll go with the Fighting Illini. Nope. They gave up 30 straight points, and I'm pretty sure in the history of basketball, no team has ever won a game when they give up 30 straight points. So the Illini are out of here, and UConn is a double-digit favorite over Alabama. And I've got some advice for Nate Oates I'll share later in the program, something I think he should do, an outside-the-box idea.
Yeah, I mean, it was kudos to Nate Oates and company for, this run here. I think and Drew, you noticed as somebody that followed the SEC and follows it all year long, right? It wasn't looking great at the start of the tournament here for SEC teams. And of course, your Auburn Tigers didn't help that situation there. But yet, here we are. I don't know how to do it with that defense, but kudos to Nate Oates for holding the troops together and getting it done. Did you like them in that last game? Did you think that Alabama was live, or were you looking to fade them at some point here during the tournament?
Joe, I didn't have a bet either way, so I stayed off of that Alabama side, and I'll tell you, mighty Yale taking down Auburn. And as an Auburn alumni, it's always tough for me to talk about Alabama, but you can't take anything away from Nate Oates and company. The offense that they're able to play, I mean, up and down the court, they are a tough kind of draw here, at least defensively. So, hey, we're going to see what they got, though. UConn, I know we're going to break it down in full here on the show, but man, stepping in front of the Huskies, Joe, like BP was just alluding to, that is a freight train. 9 straight NCAA tournament wins, all by double digits? Man, we're seeing a double-digit spread again, and it's no surprise to me anyway. And actually, Joe, I mean, seeing both of these with the Purdue line at 9 in the hook, both of these favorites are going to have to win by double digits. Usually we don't see that in the Final Four. So it's kind of, from a handicapping perspective, I find it fascinating. If you're liking these favorites, which I know hey, a lot of people are, and it's hard not to because they're two really good teams. And in my opinion, coming into the tournament, the top two teams entering the tournament, now they're both going to have to win by doubles. We'll see if it happens, guys.
Yeah, and let us not forget here, we do have a couple of other basketball games up tonight here. In fact, the NIT, still a little bit of hoops action to go, and we're going to tell you how you can take advantage of a pretty cool deal right now at WagerTalk.com with Drew Martin and or Brian Barra, anybody, in fact, here on this April Fool's Day. Can't believe it is April 2024. Shout out to those of you on Instagram. Justin Boom in the house. Pachetti's in there. Leisure Kobe. It's a pleasure to see you guys. And, of course, happy Monday to those of you that are joining us live on our vertical YouTube Shorts feed. We appreciate you guys. And, of course, John in the chat room here. John Finley, longtime viewer here and follower, was all over NC State. Plus the points as well as the under, cashed a pretty darn big ticket here this weekend. So kudos to you, John. We'll see if that can continue to roll. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you're joining us here for the first time, as we're going to dive into a couple of these games that are set and ready to go. But BP, let me ask you, because it does feel like there's levels to this, and we've been saying that it felt like there was a lot of parity with a lot of teams here, and there were maybe, UConn aside, maybe one other team that seemed to be a cut above it all. I think that's where we're at now. We have UConn and Purdue seem to be a cut above everybody else, and then we've got two other teams that seem to be in that notch below, which was anybody can beat anybody at any given time.
Yeah, so coming into the tournament, Joe, I said that there were 7 teams that could win it based on history, based on the numbers. UConn and Purdue were 2 of those 7. I thought Houston was also a cut above the rest, too. They got a bad deal, obviously, with Shed getting hurt against Duke. You have to wonder how that game would have turned out if he hadn't gotten injured. With UConn and Alabama, though, I teased it last time I spoke here. I said that Alabama, I think, needs to adopt an outside-the-box strategy for this game, because the way UConn is playing right now, Joe, I just don't think you can beat them in a traditional sense, right? And now, you certainly shouldn't do anything that Illinois tried to do. I mean, if I was the first thing I would do if I was Nate Oates is show my players that UConn-Illinois game and then say, don't do any of this at all. I mean, the challenging at the rim was insane. What were they thinking? I mean, nobody thought that was a good idea watching. The announcers were mocking them, like, guys, this isn't working. Maybe stop. So to that point, okay, Alabama already has in a pretty high rim and 3 rate, which means the vast majority of their shots are either at the rim or from behind the 3-point arc. I don't know what the record for 3-point attempts in a game is, Joe. I think Alabama should try to set it deliberately in this game. I think their only chance to pull the upset is to go absolutely berserk from 3. We know they're a team that takes a high volume of 3s anyway. This might sound crazy. I think you can shoot yourself out of the game. There's no doubt about it, trying this way, but you have to adopt an underdog strategy. If I'm Nate Oates, I'm like, guys, I think we should try 53-point attempts in this game and see what happens. Because I think that's their only chance, just talking from a straight up perspective, their only chance of pulling the upset is to go berserk from 3, which they're capable of. At the same time, in the defense, which is why no one thought Alabama was good. They're still outside the top 100. I just think that's Alabama's only chance. So we need to see a very, very high volume of 3s from them on Saturday. The last time they played UConn, which was not this season, but it was last season, they only attempted 16 3s. We're going to see a lot more than that for sure. But I don't know. I mean, 50 is a ridiculous sounding number. I'd go for it if I was Alabama, because you're not beating them at the rim, and you just got to go crazy from 3. I think that's the only chance.
Yeah, and no scoring droughts, apparently.
Yes.
No scoring droughts. Bad idea against UConn, Drew. You don't want to go through any stretch where you find it hard to get the ball into the bucket. Shout out to Justin Boom. What is going on? Yeah, that's a great question. Justin Boom joining us on Instagram here, Drew, as well as, and I saw this question too in the YouTube chat room, Shout out to 1777 Memorabilia. Kind of love that name there. Both are bringing up the point where it felt like, and you were touching base on this here, BP, the refs' involvement in those two games seemed to be interesting because a lot of complaining about Zach Edey getting away with whatever the hell he wanted in Tennessee, and yet Tennessee seemed to be getting an awful lot of whistles being called against them. In fact, the guy that was doing the best job of defending fouled out, I think, with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go. So, BP, let me ask you your thoughts on, man, was it just favoritism for Edey, or did you watch that game and be like, yeah, he can pretty much get away with what he wants?
Well, it's nothing new, right, Joe? I mean, it's been the talking point all year. And really, when you go back in time, it's always been an issue with big men, right? Like, taking this to the NBA level, that was always the thing with Shaq. Remember, I mean, the Sacramento Kings losing their mind in the playoff series about how those games were being officiated. Big guys just get calls. I mean, I don't want to hand wave this and say, well, that's just the way it is. But it's not like that this last weekend was anything new. People have been complaining about Edey getting the calls all season long and all of last year. So if you're NC State, you got to figure a way around that. You got to say, hey, if we're physical, he's going to get calls. What can we do to overcome that? History says they're not going to be able to as an 11 seed. But, again, I mean, maybe maybe Purdue can't hit their threes. I mean, we've seen it. Edey had what percentage of his team's points yesterday? It was absurd. So, I mean, if you can let Edey get his and no one else does anything, and then NC State hits their threes, that's probably their best strategy here. Because Edey is going to get the foul calls. It's just the way it always is. There's no two ways around it.
No, and it's funny, Drew, because I love Tennessee fans went right to that, though, didn't they? As soon as that game was over, Drew, it was like the crying was, oh, my God, you didn't. I mean, it was 30 minutes into the game, I believe, that before they called the first foul on Edey. But that's neither here nor there. I thought Connect was actually going to win the game for him. The kid absolutely balled out. I mean, one of the best pure shooters that we've seen in a long time. But ultimately, every time Tennessee tried to pull away, give credit to Purdue, man. Purdue just kept their foot on the gas. This is the best team that Zach Edey has had around, or at least the best shooters that Zach Edey has had around him. And the guy is a force. And no matter what, if he plays one more game or two more games, he's going to be a problem for either of those teams, whether it be Alabama or UConn or, in this case, North Carolina State and Burns should be very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, another big man, DJ Burns here. And with NC State, I almost go to like the matchup part of it because I agree with what you guys are alluding to. Edey getting the calls, but is anything really going to change? I don't know. I mean, he just scored 40 points, and the percentage of points, the team only scored 72, so he's scoring more than 50% of the team's points. If I'm NC State here and I'm head coach Kevin Keats, Joe, I don't know that I would put DJ Burns on Edey guarding him. And what I'm getting at is I don't want DJ Burns to get in foul trouble. He was just up against Duke. I watched every play of that game. Granted, I had an NC State ticket in my pocket. I felt like Duke was getting a friendly whistle there. And I guess it correlates with, I don't think it was very fluky at all that NC State won outright as the underdog. And when you watch DJ Burns down low, man, he is a force to be reckoned with as well. And I almost think that NC State, they got some other big boys down there. The young kid, Danny Cannell's, I believe, nephew, he's pretty good. The other, his name's eluding me right now. But what I'm getting at is down low, NC State is a pretty tough team. And I would almost go with kind of like the group defense here against Edey. And I wouldn't just put DJ Burns on him and get him in foul trouble early, Joe. I actually think this might set up well from a matchup standpoint for NC State, just to kind of keep him at bay down low and let DJ Burns do his thing offensively for NC State. And hey, they're hot right now. I mean, how many games have they won outright as the underdog? I wouldn't write them off just yet, just because we see an 11 as their seeding. This is a way different team than they were in the regular season. And that change is something we might be able to ride here. I mean, I don't know if we could put, that money line, man, if that hits, that's going to be a big time boost here to the bankroll. But catching near doubles here, NC State, in that matchup standpoint, if they do play it that way, I think they got a shot.
It's going to be it should be a heavyweight fight because the heavyweights suck now anyway. But man, I'd love to get Edey versus Burns, man. Just throw them in the ring and let's see what goes on, because I do think it's going to be a whole lot of banging and it's going to be a whole lot of, all right, so where do the whistles come in? Do they let them play? Because here's the other thing, BP. We're looking at what, 9.5, right, is what it opened. We're seeing 9.5 for Purdue right now. And 146, I did see 146.5. So it looks like we're starting to see it tick down a little bit. And if you're swallowing the whistles, how in the hell are you getting anything in the paint with these two teams? I don't see you getting a whole lot in the paint, which means you're going to have to be extra special from outside. And I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen either here. What did you think of the total at 146, 146.5 with these two teams?
I actually have far more interest in the total on the other game. I can get to that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if they're swallowing the whistles, that's going to favor the under naturally, because we're not sending them to the line 100 times. I don't have a real strong feel for this total, but like I said, I really am intrigued by the Alabama UConn total, Joe. More so because I know UConn's gone under in every tournament game, but are we surprised that this number's this low considering how Alabama plays? Alabama over its last 12 games, guys, is 10-2 to the over. Almost every total is 170 points or higher during that stretch. The first three totals, I think I talked about this on one of the shows last week, but the first three totals for Alabama in this tournament were all historically high totals for the last 30 years. In the big dance, the odds makers dropped it down to 160. It closed at 163. The over took some money. The Clemson game did in the Elite Eight, and that game goes over the total. Given how UConn can score, what Alabama needs to do here to have a chance, I'm surprised this total opened low. I guess the only path to an under for Alabama UConn that I could see is if, like I talked earlier, Alabama. They go heavy 3-point volume, and they're just not making them. Then it turns into a blowout. In that case, I guess I could. That to me though is the only script where this game goes under, right? I mean, Bama gave up 82 to Clemson, 87 to Carolina, 96 to Charleston. That game was played at like 300 miles an hour. And Grand Canyon's the only team they held under 80, but Grand Canyon couldn't hit a three in that game. They were 2 for 20 or something like that.
Yep.
So this total to me looks a little low between Alabama and UConn.
Yeah, it's that's also going to be a very interesting game to figure out exactly how that's going to go, and will the whistles play a role in that one? I don't think there was any question, Drew. UConn was the better team, period. And I don't think I can remember a time where I've seen an elite offense go up against another elite offense and get absolutely blown out the way they did. And keep in mind, UConn was 3 of 17 from 3-point range in that game. What the hell would the score have been if they actually hit their season average of 38%? It would have been a total mauling here. So I don't know that I've ever seen that kind of dominating performance in an Elite Eight game. And not talking about a mediocre team playing above their head, Drew. We're talking about Illinois was a top 5 defense in the country. Those guys scored on everyone except for UConn.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in the intro, Joe, they're a freight train right now. 9 straight tournament wins, all by double digits, beating good quality teams, obviously, at this point in the tournament. And Joe, like to your point on like this total, Alabama pretty much plays all of their games over 70 possessions. You'd have to go back to like December. The last time they didn't play in a game was at least 70 possessions. A lot of those games, 80 plus possessions. And UConn's the exact opposite. They play all of their games under 70 possessions. So I almost think there's correlation here in terms of if you like the over, kind of to BP's point, it's because Alabama is getting at least somewhat of their way in terms of the tempo, and they're hitting their threes. Because UConn here, guys, the way that this goes under, in my opinion, is UConn gets out to the lead, they defend the 3-point line well, and then they just take the air out of the ball and they pretty much maul their opponent, like we've seen multiple times if you've been watching the Huskies. They're just the more talented team. And in college basketball, if you're new to betting college basketball totals, the more talented team usually controls the tempo. So that's the tough part about betting the over. Although at first glance, I kind of agree. It did look a little low, a little short, if you will, because Alabama's going to look to go up tempo and they're going to just fire away threes. They're going to kind of swing for the fences because I think they know what they're up against a little bit here. And if those threes are dropping, they get out to a lead. Watch out. This might be a kind of the underdog barking, if you will. But man, it's a great game overall, Joe. I do think, the matchup wise, who controls the tempo is going to have a better shot at winning. And there is some correlation with Alabama, I feel, if you're a parlay better, Alabama in the over and UConn in the under, if you'll go that route.
Yeah. It's so I don't know what to make anymore of it, BP, because I didn't think Alabama was the better team against Clemson. I think they were the luckier team because the variance was in their favor. You're talking about an 80% free throw shooting team, Clemson, and they missed half their free throws. They left another 8 or 9 points out on the court that they normally would have had. They only won by 7. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they only shot what? 22% from 3 in the game. They're normally a 37, 38% 3-point shooting team. So congrats, you won the game, but I still didn't think they were the better team than Clemson. I just think they had more breaks go their way. I'm struggling to figure out a path that they're actually going to stop this UConn team and stay within, just even staying within a number. I'm struggling because the kinds of things that they got the breaks with North Carolina and Clemson kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Are we expecting UConn to do that here as well?
No, I mean, what we saw in that Clemson game, Joe, you referenced the 3-point variance. After 7 halves of basketball where Clemson had benefited from 3-point variance, I mean, people have been shouting about it on Twitter. And 3-point variance finally went against Clemson in the second half. That's and you add that onto the free throw shooting you mentioned. That's why Clemson went bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, It's tough because I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't know how much people are moving UConn. I don't know if people I look at this line and it's a classic, what I'm wrestling with internally. It's what my numbers say and what the eye test tells me. The eye test tells me nobody's staying within double digits of UConn. I mean, when they're on their A, it's just, I mean, they flipped the switch. They went from up 5 to 35 against Illinois like that. And as you mentioned, Illinois is an elite offensive team. Now, Alabama's an elite offensive team. We actually have the top 3 most efficient offenses in the country in the Final Four, which is interesting. Now, UConn owns a major edge at the defensive end. They're 4th in adjusted defensively compared to 104th for Alabama. Pace, as Drew just talked about so eloquently, that's a big deal here. Alabama's top 10 in the country in adjusted tempo. UConn's outside the top 300. So every time you hear pace war in the lead up to the game, take a drink, I guess, because that will be a popular term, I think, in the breakdown here. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, Joe, I think Alabama's only path to victory is adopt an under. If you're playing against an elite team, we see this all the time. I was a little too young to experience it real time, but I always remember hearing about the Villanova-Georgetown final, right? When Georgetown had Patrick Ewing, they were so much better than Villanova. What did Villanova do? They just played at a ridiculously slow pace and didn't give Georgetown a lot of possessions. Well, I think Alabama, playing to their strength, needs to do the exact opposite and just, like I said, just go for the record. Whatever the record of 3-point attempts is in an NCAA tournament game, I think you got to be out to break it. And you run the risk of shooting yourself out and getting blown out. But I think it's your only path to victory if they can make 23s in this game. I don't see another path to victory for Bama other than that.
I mean, UConn beat Northwestern and they went 3 for 20-something in that game, right? So, and then they beat Illinois by 25. They go 3 of 17 from 3. Drew, we talk about it a lot, where when you try to get into the tournament, you try to look at some teams and say, all right, what's your next pitch? Like, what's your second pitch? What happens if your fastball isn't there or it's not moving? Like, what are you going to go to here to be able to win a game and finish a game? And UConn's, their 3-point, I can argue their 3-point shooting has been atrocious to this particular point, and yet they're still bulldozing teams because they have more than one way to beat you. I don't know that Bama's got that other gear, do they? I think either they're going to do what they did against Clemson and go absolutely off from three, or it's going to be lights out. It just feels like, I can't believe we're in a Final Four talking about an 11.5-point favorite here, Drew, but that's there. I would love to say UConn's overvalued. They're not by any stretch of the imagination, are they?
I don't think so, Joe. I think it's in the numbers. I mean, the odds makers are really good at what they do. There's really nice, large casinos in Las Vegas for a reason.
Yeah.
And that 11-10 comes back to get you here. So, I mean, seeing UConn, 11 in the hook, it opened 10.5, guys. We're seeing 12s now. So usually earlier money in college basketball, really in most betting environments is a little bit sharper money if you're getting down earlier in the week. And we're seeing more of the money here on UConn. And sometimes, Joe, it's more than sometimes. The trend is your friend, and the trend is UConn smashing in the NCAA tournament. So do you really want to step in front of that here? I don't. And also here, talking about matchup standpoints, yes, pace is important, how these teams are going to play. But Joe, I feel like we can't go too much longer before bringing up, this is the Final Four. It's in State Farm Stadium there in Arizona, where the Arizona Cardinals play their home games, not the Phoenix Suns. This is a football stadium, and the sight lines, can affect 3-point shooting. I think it could affect both teams, but I think there's some aspects here to be brought up, Joe. UConn's played in football stadiums. Just last year, they were in the Final Four.
Yep.
Alabama, not as much. Yes, very good football program, but the basketball team hasn't really played in football stadiums of this atmosphere. The Final Four atmosphere, I mean, it's one of the best out there in all of sports. And I also want to bring up another aspect. I've been to this stadium a couple times. In one side where the end zone would be, it's actually open back there, Joe, if you've ever been there, because they roll out the actual turf, the grass, to grow the grass in this stadium. So that brings another element here that we normally wouldn't get in the Final Four, that each, I guess, background of the rim isn't going to be likewise in terms of the same, sight line behind it. It's just some aspects that I wanted to bring up here, and I would lean to it actually helping UConn more than Alabama, because they're not going to shoot as many threes, as many long range shots. So just some other kind of, where this game is being played, actually having an input on the outcome.
It's a great point, Drew, and it certainly it's a great reminder for those that don't know, because I do think the change of venues might have hurt teams like, Marquette, who also went 3 for 632 from three. And now another team that couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat, right? Different gyms, different sight lines, and it absolutely has to be taken into consideration. The experience is there for UConn, to Drew's point there, BP. But again, it's one of those situations like we've already seen. I don't think we've seen the best game from UConn. Is that fair? Like, I don't think we've seen the game where they put it all together. 3-point shooting, right? In the paint. Defense has been phenomenal, and we know this. Like, I still think the best is yet to come, which should scare the living crap out of Bama. But if it's not, what do we have faith in Bama that they have another gear? They have some other way to beat UConn, if it ain't because they're draining 17 to 35 threes or something along those lines?
What's crazy, Joe, about what you're saying, and I agree with you that we haven't seen the best of UConn. The point you make about them struggling in 2 of the 4 games from three-point land is well taken, but it's crazy that we're talking about a team that just went on a 30-0 run against Illinois. Illinois is not some joke team that made the Elite Eight. Illinois is a top 10 team in the country. UConn scored 30 consecutive points on them. And yet we're saying we have not seen the best of this team. That is very, very frightening if you're one of these other three teams still standing up. I mentioned earlier that if I was Alabama, I would look at the Illinois game and do the exact opposite. I think one opponent, if I was Nate Oates, I might also make a call to Rick Pitino, because St. John's was the one team that could kind of play UConn tough during the regular season. And UConn's a team, or St. John's, pardon me, is a team. They like to play fast too. They don't have the kind of shooters, obviously, that Alabama does. I don't know if something can be taken from that, but St. John's was a team that played UConn tough. By the way, another reason why maybe the Johnnies shouldn't have been left out of the tournament. But I don't know. Like I said, it's Alabama's only hope, Joe. I'm going to say it for a third time here, is 3-point variance. It's not just 3-point variance. It's probably historically great 3-point variance. It's volume and positive variance. Other than that, no, they probably don't have a chance of winning this game.
We got a couple of great, and by the way, Drew has got he is locked and loaded here, guys, on a April Fool's edition here, and it is no joke though for you guys, because right now daily packages are $9. That's right, $9. You can get an all-day, all-access pass, $17. Take advantage of it today with Major League Baseball available. I know already some bets here. Again, not just the Final Four. We still have some NIT games going on. We have an opportunity for you guys to jump on board and partner up with either BP or Drew. And Drew will tell you about this here coming up, because he is locked and loaded and a couple other games here that you need to know about. But keep in mind, take advantage for $9. That's a hell of a way to get the month of April off and running. And a big shout out to some great comments in the chat room. And again, by the way, Tap it. Thank you very much. Innocent Mike over on Instagram. You guys rock. Thank you so much for hanging with us here, as well as the chat room crazies on YouTube are great. And those that are joining us via their mobile phone on YouTube Shorts, got a couple of great comments here, guys, we'll throw out. First of all, we have a serious issue with Killer J, longtime watcher and participant here in the show. And he'll be the first to tell you that it has nothing to do with other than his jump shot. And that's really what it is. But he apparently blew his leg out, and apparently he's going to have to change his name now. Can't be Killer J anymore if you can't jump. And in fact, I believe John Finley said that's the problem when you have to guard Edie over the weekend. That's what happens. You blow legs out, and you're absolutely correct. Poor Killer J. I'm looking forward to seeing what your new name is going to be here. What about a lot of first half questions here, BP? First half under 77.5. Alabama in the first half plus 6.5. Rob Lynch is all over those there. And of course, we're even getting 4-point teasers on NC State and UConn. Hold on, Graham B. We're going to get to that point as well. But BP, talk to us here about these first half angles. A lot of folks in the chat room seem to think maybe first half total start out a little slow. We have seen that, certainly from Alabama. Is that not a bad look here as well moving forward?
No, I actually like the look, perhaps, of Alabama plus 6.5 in the first half, because, Joe, you got to ask yourself, if they're not covering early, are they going to be covering late? Do we see a game script where they get blown out in the first half and then sneak in the back door? I sort of don't. And you look at UConn's last two games, they were only up, 5 on Illinois at half, and they were not up by that many on San Diego State either, where, if memory serves me correct. It was a close game until the end of that first half, for sure. I don't hate that look for Alabama. Obviously, it shortens the game. You hope, maybe you're just hoping they get the positive 3-point variance inside the first 20 minutes, and it's less time for UConn to blow them out, less time for UConn to go on one of those big runs like we saw in the Illinois game. So I don't hate that look from the perspective that, from a script perspective, a game script, I'm not saying it's scripted for Christ's sake, just from a game, how the game will play out, I don't see Alabama falling big behind in the first half and then covering. So if you like Alabama, or if you think they have a prayer, it may be prudent just to bet the Tide in the first half. Don't hate it.
Yeah, and interesting too. 1777 memorabilia there on YouTube Shorts. Drew goes, Hurley is a few fries short of a Happy Meal. He is going to want more than anything else to continue this blowout city because he's that kind of personality, isn't he? Like Hurley is going, if we can beat you by 20, we're going to beat you we're not taking the foot off the gas. Like he has gone scorched earth all year long, not caring. He doesn't watch what he says. I mean, the guy is really a few fries short of a Happy Meal. And he's got a point. We have not seen great coaching in this tournament here. And I believe it was Fortnite that actually mentioned it in the chat too, saying, I can't remember a postseason with worst in-game adjustments. Arizona, Marquette, jacking up threes even when they had gotten back into the game, even though they couldn't hit them. When we talk about coaching mattering and we made fun, of course, of Matt Painter, who's here in the Final Four, and, of course, Rick Barnes, who's not. But it matters. It matters a lot in these games, not because of the regular season, but because of just that. What happens when your team is down? You talked about arenas playing an interesting role in this and sidelines. So does coaching, does it not?
Oh, it absolutely does, Joe. Yeah, I mean, we could go back to John Calipari in Kentucky. Remember against Oakland?
Yes.
It's just like, oh, you got this guy nailing threes. Oh, and by the way, you had time to prepare for it. Did you know that the Oakland Grizzlies play a zone? Because if you watch Kentucky play in the first round, you wouldn't have seen that. You can go back to my Auburn Tigers. I mean, that wasn't Bruce Pearl's best coaching job, going down to the Ivy League and Yale there. And yeah, it has carried over a little bit. I don't want to Monday morning quarterback too much on the coaches, but yes, I do agree with you. I mean, Hurley, and to tell you the truth, for what it's worth, I think Nate Oates has the same temperament. If he has the ability to get his opponent down, he's going to run up the score. Unfortunately for Alabama, I don't think they're going to have that opportunity against UConn. But yes, Joe, I could see UConn looking to kind of break Alabama's back, and if they're able to do that, it could get really ugly. Oates would like to do the same thing, but again, I don't think he's going to have that opportunity. I guess overall, Joe, going to the location of the game, I think an interesting part of this handicap, and it sometimes it's hard to find out, particularly like before the teams travel for whatever reason, and maybe it's the smart reason, they don't like put that out. You'll have to wait until Alabama or UConn's Instagrams or Twitters or like putting up the pictures of them getting on the team plane. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're getting out there very, very early in the week. I'm not one to say like travel, particularly like in major college basketball or football or the NFL, anything like that, is a big part of the handicap. But in a situation like this, playing in a football stadium, I actually do. I would want as many hours on that court kind of shooting around with those sight lines as possible. So I figure all four teams would get out there pretty early, Joe. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, this is on the West Coast. The West Coast team, by the way, hasn't won the national championship in how long? Even though this will be played there, it's still going to be on the east side of the Mississippi in terms of the winner.
Right. I think Baylor was the last champion that far west. That's as far west as we've gotten, I think, as a champion, right, BP?
Arizona in 97 was the last Pacific time zone team to win it with whatchamacallit. Well, why is his name escaping me? The point wasn't like who was on that team, that Arizona team?
Miller?
The 97 Arizona team.
Wasn't it Walt?
Oh, the guy that was there for 100 years.
Miles Simon was on Arizona.
Yeah.
Miles Simon was on that team. Yes, there we go. Yes, that's right. Okay.
Outstanding. We do have a couple of interesting poll questions up too, and I'll ask each of you, and then Drew, you can tell us what you got locked and loaded for tonight's matchups here. Still plenty of basketball left on the college side of things here. The poll question has been pretty simple here. Will both number one seeds advance to the final? It's either yes or no, because one or both will lose. What do you think here? And by the way, 54% think yes. I thought it might be a little bit higher. And this is going to be the interesting thing, BP. How much is the public falling in love with North Carolina State? is Bama. We know Bama faithful will certainly show up at the windows here, but what would you give it percentage-wise that we're probably getting 1 versus 1, which if we're being honest, that's what I want to see.
Yes, because you'd have Edie against Clayton. Yeah, I would put the percentage much higher than 54%. We're talking about 2 favorites of 9 points or more, one that's playing at a historically great clip. I expect NC State to be a public dog. Now, they've been a public dog for multiple games in this tournament, and it's obviously gone well for them. They're still playing. But I think the narrative surrounding Painter and Edie is still there. So I expect NC State to be a public dog in that matchup. I expect the public to be on UConn in the Alabama game. Just a quick trend for you guys. Alabama, as an underdog this year, they did beat North Carolina. That was a 4% winner for me in the Sweet 16, where the Crimson Tide. But even with that win, they're 2-7 straight up, 3-6 against the number as a dog this year, losing by an average of 10 points, giving up an average of 93 points as an underdog. So we talked earlier about the total. If Alabama's giving up 93 points here, they better hope them threes are falling. Otherwise, it is going to be a long Saturday night for Nate Oates.
Oh, yes. Mike Bibby and Miles Simon says, Grant B. Great call there in 1997 for Arizona. All right, let's not forget here, guys, Major League Baseball also underway. Drew is definitely locked and loaded there. And also, Drew, some other basketball outside the Final Four. Tell us about it on a $9 April 1st partnership here. Also, all day. All access packages for one day, just $17 here, Drew. So if they head to the page at WagerTalk, what are they going to see there?
Yeah. If you did Drew Martin, WagerTalk.com, got the $9 Monday up in MLB. Also got a free play posted, guys. And for whatever it's worth, overs hitting its 64% clip out the gate throughout the first weekend in MLB. So is that ball juiced? Well, I don't know. And I can't tell you for sure. And to tell you, I don't think they would let us know anyway, Joe. So we're just going to have to figure it out ourselves here. But look at the numbers and 64% to the over. The free play is on the over. You can go check that out at my page. And the $9 play is on another over. So I'm buying into this 64% overs on the bases so far. Something going on with the ball, I suspect. Also got a $9 NIT Final Four. Don't forget about the NIT, guys. Great tournament to win some money. It's been good this year, Joe. And got a free play up on the NIT and a $9 play up for the NIT Final Four. I believe that will be $9 until midnight tonight. So if you get it early, then after that, it goes back to normal pricing. But Joe, do you have the free play up on the NIT Final Four? The first game up, Utah and Indiana State. Not sure if you checked out this game, guys, but the Final Four, Joe, we're seeing Indiana State -2 in the hook, actually getting pushed up to -3 here. I think part of the reason being they're playing not New York anymore in the NIT Final Four, Joe, but they're in Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is only about an hour away from Indiana State's campus. Not a big one into travel this time of year, but the fact that the fan base is there, they're really excited about it. I think there is a little aspect to that, maybe a point or two towards Indiana State. Utah's had a great run as well out of the Pac-12. They were an under 500 team in conference, but they've made the run here in the NIT. I just think they're going to come up short, Joe, because Indiana State is the #1 field goal percentage team in the country, the best shooting team in the country. They also hit 80% of their free throws. And Utah on the other side, guys, just 65% from the free throw line. So when one team's only hitting 65%, and the other team's hitting over 80%, that's too far a discrepancy for me. Getting this number under 3, Joe, with the better free throw shooting team, I think Indiana State's the side. On Tuesday night, ESPN primetime NIT Final Four. Give me the Sycamores in Indiana State, Joe.
What's the dude's name? I mean, honestly, maybe the most. I wish he would have been in the tournament, man. I mean, I wish they would have beat Drake. Because what was it? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That guy is maybe one of the best and most underrated college hoops players that we have seen in a long time. Guy was absolutely phenomenal this year, and kudos to him. Right, the ability to be able to make it now with a possibility of getting another sort of championship. And where was this effort, Utah, down the stretch? My goodness, Drew. Would have thought we would have gotten a little bit more there, but great breakdown, great write-up, guys, and you can check on his page right now. It's right there for you, as well as that $9 best bet. Hop on over there and check it out. And BP, we're also getting some questions here. I want to know what you've got locked and loaded up at your page here on this $9 Monday. But it seems to be a lot of people saying, yeah, I do think Purdue and North Carolina and UConn are going to advance. It's going to be, for all the hubbub, we're actually going to get maybe one of the best finals we've seen in a long, long time. And I agree with that. But a lot of people are like, I'm still going to take the 9.5 with NC State, though, because they think that's a little too much. I think it's going to keep going. I think you don't have to be in a rush to bet North Carolina State, because it would not shock me if this thing hits double digits at some particular point before tip-off.
Maybe.
Or you think it goes the other way?
Like I said, I think, it's interesting, too, that what we're hearing from the chairman. I think NC State, like I said earlier, is going to be a public dog. I don't know if it's going to hit double digit. It might. We'll see if people maybe could. I think the number actually is a little bit short. But then again, I think the number is, again, based on what my power rating stays a little high in the other game, and I'm not exactly flocking to bet Alabama at the current price either. That's one I don't think you should. If you for some reason do like the dog, if you're man enough to go against UConn, I would certainly wait there to see how high that number goes. As for what I have for today, we are swinging for the fences in Major League Baseball. I've got 4 plays on Monday. One of them, which goes in the afternoon. First pitch is in a little bit over an hour. You can read that for free on my page. Right now, I have 3 more available, and that for just $3 each, you can get all 3 games, $9 for 3 winners in MLB. Yes, I'm not a math major, but that is $3 per winner is what my calculator is telling me, Joe. So there you go. Yeah. And Rob, there you go. Yeah. I should have. Rob Vino would back me up there with that. Yes. So head on over. WT.buzz/BP. 3-pack of MLB winners, just $9. No joke on April Fools.
I love it. It will be interesting to see, though, the line movement in both of these games. We already got a double-digit line, and if you were lucky enough when it opened, 10.5 was out there, and now it's up to 11.5. And like you said, Drew, I'm seeing 12s popping up on the live WagerTalk odds screen, which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked that out at WagerTalk.com, it should be in one of those favorite places of yours. You should have that thing locked and loaded on Google there. It is a great, great resource to have. And checking out with the percentages and the tickets and the money. It's a great resource to have. So make sure you lock that in on your browser at WagerTalk.com, the live odds page. And also don't forget, take advantage of the $9 here. BP is now counting his toes. So let's stick with the $3. He's confirmed, in fact, now that $3 a play. He is absolutely convinced of that. $9, guys. Daily play packages available today, April 1st. And of course, an all access pass, $17, guys. Not a bad way to go here. Plenty of sports, MLB, NHL games, NBA, in fact, coming up your way. BP and I will be back here at 4:00 Eastern time. Hope you guys will come back and join us, as we've got a slate of games. You only got about 7-8 games left to go in the regular season. A lot still to be decided in the association. So make plans to come back and join us in an hour. We'll go over those games. We'll give you all the latest afternoon updates on the line movement and the injuries. And then, of course, we'll give you some of those best bets and predictions and answer any questions you may have. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll be back again later in the week with more updates as far as the Final Four and the national championship here. You'll get everybody's opinion here like you have all season long. But until then, go visit Drew Martin right now for a $9 best bet locked and loaded over at his page at WagerTalk.com. BP and I will see you in an hour. Smash that like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and come back and join us, guys. Best of luck with all your plays today. We'll talk to you again soon.